Good morning again. So first off, I want to thank the organizers, especially Bezod, and all of the other unnamed individuals, volunteers, and students who have kept us moving and kept us getting us to where we need to be. I'd like to thank OP Jindal Global University for hosting us, and I also have much gratitude to Umit and all of those from the Atlantic Institute. Science diplomacy has historically been described as the promotion of a more peaceful world through scientific cooperation and the use of science advice for foreign policy decision makings. In these comments and in this larger project, my students and I are exploring what would a proactive 21st century science diplomacy for peacemaking or for peace building look like, and what is the role for civil society groups like Hizmet. This paper lays the foundation for development of a theoretical framework with this emphasis intentionally on peacemaking. It starts with analysis of major factors from past and current organizations engaged in more traditional science diplomacy. So a little background. In the 20th century, much of the push for science diplomacy was inextricably tied to the national security realm. In his first inaugural address after the conclusion of World War II, President Harry Truman laid out 4 foreign policy goals. The last of those, he asserted, was, quote, "We must embark on a bold new program for making the benefits of our scientific advances and industrial progress available for the improvement and growth of underdeveloped areas," end quote. This speech is better known as the speech in which the concept of NATO was introduced. At the same time, as we are discussing the plan for rebuilding Europe, science and technology was intrinsically seen and connected to economic development and for human benefit. And I'd like us all to pause for a moment and contrast what President Truman said with the rhetoric coming out of the current White House.
You have to chuckle or you'll cry.
Moving forward, science diplomacy has perhaps made the biggest impact as part of Track 2 diplomatic efforts. This is informal diplomacy between individuals who are not officially empowered to act on behalf of a state, but are acting in accordance with a state's foreign policy goals. These often occur through dialogue exchanges, cooperative programs, or other means. The goal is to increase cooperation, to increase transparency, to decrease conflict through building relationships. As an aside, the last time I was in Moscow was in December 2019 as part of a Track 1.5, Track 2 effort trying to re-engage and understand on the intersection of emerging technologies with nuclear cooperation. That was December 2019. I don't think I could go to Moscow today. I probably would not be let in. I don't know if I want to. These Track 2 efforts with nuclear physicists and other scientists during the Cold War are legendary. They sought to reduce the threat of nuclear conflict and to promote arms control and disarmament. In many ways, the nuclear diplomacy of the Cold War may be conceptualized as the pinnacle of Track 2 science diplomacy. And it was viscerally connected to reducing global nuclear threats, again, through promoting understanding, reducing tensions, and strengthening interpersonal relationships. By the way, the last nuclear arms control treaty between the U.S. and Russia expired yesterday morning. For the first time since 1972, the two states with the largest nuclear arsenals, by far, have no limits on the size of their inventories. There's no agreed and established verification protocols, however imperfect they might be, and no vision for moving forward. Overall, Track 2 science diplomacy has been an underutilized tool since those days of the Cold War, which may be ironic, considering that since the early 1990s, the world is increasingly technologically dependent, increasingly technologically connected, and it is spreading at an unprecedented rate. To explain that difference there, particularly with respect to U.S. engagement in science diplomacy, I look to data on the comparative perceptions of the value of science and technology. Pew Global Attitudes Survey, most recent one, shows that more than anything, quote, U.S. science and tech advances are viewed positively around the globe, ranging from 61% positive in Argentina to 88% positively in Kenya and Senegal. This should be an area to leverage for diplomacy. And by the way, if one analyzes the data specifically for what Pew defines as Middle East conflicts areas, that is Egypt, Pakistan, Turkey, and Uzbekistan, it's even more dramatic. Science tech advances are cited by 86% as a reason for liking the U.S. more than anything else. Interestingly, to put it diplomatically, and this, I think, explains why it's been underutilized, the data from the U.S. is basically the inverse. Only 32% of Americans surveyed perceive tech science advances as a major reason for liking the U.S. Because Americans don't see it, too many of them assume the rest of the world thinks the same way, which is a disappointing finding. Prior work, I've documented how in the 21st century, three major risks to effectiveness exist for science diplomacy: not being relevant, not being strategic, and not being at the table, i.e. present at these discussions. While there are notable exceptions, often this is best not accomplished by active research science. There's a critical need for champions and for a cohort of individuals who can bridge across the technical and foreign policy arenas. And if this was my classroom, I'd be asking our foreign service officers, how many of you are engineers or physical or life scientists as you are pursuing your foreign service officer careers? Moving forward, or in some ways going back to that initial question, what would a proactive 21st century science diplomacy for peace building look like? For this project, my students and I have developed and coded a novel database of 50 organizations across 28 different variables. The coding schema integrates insights from the major science diplomacy literature, from organizational studies, and from diplomatic performance theory. Other variables are novel, including those specific to peace building. To illustrate, I'm going to briefly mention a couple of organizations. The oldest in our database is the German National Academy of Sciences, Leopoldina, which was founded in 1652. That's 8 years before the UK's Royal Society. Its major issue areas are science promotion, science advice, and education. It primarily engages in track 1.5 diplomacy and is funded by the German federal government and state governments. We code its activities as capacity building, science for policy, and norm setting. Leopoldina promotes science and in national and international cooperation through a variety of different mechanisms, including honors and prizes. The youngest organization in our database, founded in 2019, is the European Union Science Diplomacy Alliance. Its focus is on science diplomacy, capacity building, knowledge exchange, and international cooperation. funded via the Horizon 2020 program, so EU. It also accepts private funding from corporations through the EU Global Service Facility. Focusing on peace building as a variable, 21 of the organizations in our database explicitly mention peace building as the goal or a goal or core to its mission. So these include ones that have direct articulations. For example, the American Association for the Advancement of Science, Center for Science Diplomacy, asserts that, quote, by fostering international scientific collaborations and dialogues across political boundaries, the center promotes mutual understanding and reduces tension, an important component of peace building, unquote. Another example is the Geneva Science Diplomacy Alliance, who asserts that they want to prevent geopolitical tensions over science and technology, and thus enabling peace building. Some of the articulations are a little more guarded. For example, the ISC, they assert that they want to contribute indirectly to peace and stability through science diplomacy. Chinese Academy of Sciences talks about projects that contribute to global problem solving and foster collaboration that may support peace. And there's at least one that ties science directly to the humanities. That would be the European Leadership in Cultural Science and Innovation Diplomacy. Implicitly in this database, 28 promote peace building as part of their core mission. These include UK's Royal Society and the Indian National Science Academy, which mentions that their activities contribute to constructive engagement and mutual understanding. Another one is the Islamic World Academy of Sciences, which notes that promoting cooperation in science and technology, this is one means to reduce disparities and enhance regional stability. There's only one organization that doesn't directly or indirectly mention peace building or conflict resolution, and that is South Korea's Science Technology Policy Institute. So peace building is an intrinsic part of these traditional Track 1 and Track 2 science diplomacy efforts. This is the foundational work we need to understand and move forward. In future work, we are looking to empirically incorporate Track 3 efforts, that is civil society, citizen-to-citizen interactions like the Hizmet movement. Wrapping up, in the global information age, the most technologically advanced power no longer guarantees national or international security. Globalization and the information revolution, including the internet, have led to much greater visibility into the availability and the potential for science and technology. And that's before we even consider the implications of other emerging technologies, from AI, which seems to be everywhere, including yesterday, synthetic biology, metamaterials, nanotechnology, quantum science, and whatever technology is yet to be named. Understanding these changing paradigms and the implications for peace building in the 21st century starts with an awareness of the factors driving the capabilities and understanding of the underlying challenges as we move to promote a more peaceful world. Thank you.